Cool.
Okay.
So guys, we're gonna talk about the shoulder. We're gonna talk through different cases of the shoulder. We're gonna practice some manual stuff on the shoulder. So Naomi, would you mind sharing some things you got from the course, and we'll kind of go from there?
Sure. I watched at least part of a continuing education course from Summit Professional this past weekend, and so they were talking about the different kinds and reasons for impingement in the shoulder. And so all of them are the narrowing of the subacromial space, and you have the supraspinatus tendon that gets entrapped and inflamed. And so they talked about like bursitis and posterior cuff tightness, laxity too. So like for example, a patient who was an athlete at some point in their life where they had a lot of shoulder range of motion, and then as they grew older, they had less neuromuscular control because they stopped doing their activities, and they had that shoulder laxity. Also from maybe someone who had a stroke also has some shoulder laxity.
So that's great. So have you guys seen anybody with that posterior capsule, just that muscular behind the posterior shoulder just tight, that's kind of pushing that humeral head forward? Does that sound familiar?
I haven't seen anybody yet.
Yeah, I have someone currently. Most of their pain is all complaints in the back. So we've been working on stability and scapular strength, and I don't know if it's coming from the pushing, but all of his complaints are right back here.
Can you give us a little history on that person, like, you know, demographics and kind of, was it a chronic issue? Was it something acute?
Maybe like a year ago or 2 years ago, heard it during selection of having one of the poles drop on him that they have to carry, and he's unsure if it was dislocated or not, but he was hospitalized for it. And then he went for PT on base for 4 months and said that they were just working him out. So it just wasn't healing at all. And now his major complaint, he's actually like, it's deciding if I don't heal him, which it's not looking like I'm going to, he's getting med boarded. Because the only other option, he wants to stay in and try to go to selection again. But biggest complaint is that posterior pain, and the biggest complaint is pain with a rucksack or a back, like even a light backpack on his shoulders hurts.
Hurts posteriorly?
Hurts like the whole, starts getting radiating symptoms down the arms, hurts posteriorly with certain movements, but just the weight of the backpack and that shoulder depression is something that he says he can't tolerate putting a backpack on for more than a couple minutes.
He doesn't have a tear diagnosed there? Huh, that's interesting.
Not that I've ever known. He's never spoke about images or like sent me stuff about clearing of things. I mean, he tests positive for tons of rotator things, but at some point it's like, which one is actually valid if he's testing positive for most things?
Yeah.
Have you been doing like things specifically to address posterior stuff, or you just been kind of working?
If you have any specific ideas, I can tell you if I've done it or not. But
Well, so one thing that I've, like typically when I see that, I would dare to say it's more of a chronic issue, because it's been enough time for that to get tight. You know, it hadn't been the acute playing basketball and something weird happened. It's just it's been injured for a while. They haven't taken it home up beyond 90 for a long time. You know, for a couple months or even years. And I tend to find that there's a lot of just tightness in the posterior capsule. Even having them supine and pushing and assessing it is just not as easy as a glide. And even doing some cross body stretch, they get a lot of tightness back here. So in those cases, I just realized that, like my thought process of if it's subacromial impingement, if it's not in a case where it's just like laxity, I'm just trying to create the proper environment for that rotator cuff tendon to get some good blood flow and for the impingement to be minimized. So if the posterior capsule is tight, I just found that there's a lot of kind of forward translation of that humeral head.
yeah,
So some of the things that I commonly do is cross body. I do some cross body stretch if they can tolerate it. That's the only thing. You kind of putting them somewhat in a impingement position.
Right. Maybe with the
Yeah.
rotate it out that way you have external rotation.
Sometimes I even try to just kind of get them. Yeah, but that definitely opens it up.
Right.
And there's I guess we can go ahead and transition. Let me show you this technique. So there's let's supine for me. Let me know if you guys are familiar with this one, but there's a.
You need a towel?
There's like this. Thank you. There's this axial load that you can apply to the humerus to really stretch out the cuff there. Just want to definitely male work with female and create that barrier. Slide over towards me on there. And I usually just, if we can get them, if I can get them here, and I'm just mindful not to internally rotate them because that's going to impinge them. So I'll just get here. And if you want to move your hand. Okay, so I get here. I'll stabilize that scalp. And then I'm just going straight down. Now you should feel that in the back of your shoulder. Now when it comes down like posterior capsule, this stretches it out good.
Yeah.
And even when, what does that feel like, Jamie?
Stretch.
It's a big stretch.
Yeah, this is also my injured rotator arm.
Oh,
So it's
you
nice.
good?
Yeah, I'm fine.
And then once I've done, so a lot of times they'll say, oh, that's uncomfortable, that's painful, and I continue with it, and it'll start to, oh, okay, that feels more better, I feel the stretch. And if you don't tell them where they should feel it, then they're gonna be, oh yeah, I feel it, but they could be talking about pain here, so you definitely wanna say, hey, looking for a stretch in the back of the shoulder. My progression is just this. It's still just going axial load. But I mean, like, that's like those are my two go-tos for,
Yeah.
That's posterior capsule.
Do you find most posterior capsule people have complaints posteriorly or anteriorly from the humeral head going so forward?
Anteriorly.
Oh, really?
I never really heard. I've had some people complain posteriorly, but typically they don't have any pain there. It's just the fact that it's tight and it's causing pain in the front because it's pushing forward. And postural-wise, if you look at them, you may be able to see a little. You may be able to see something small, but it's just one of those things where you just know, okay, your range of motion has been limited for X amount of time. You had to lift your arms. You probably got some tightness in your posterior capsule.
Yeah, I've gotten to the point where he's like maybe 165, 160 compared to, like, if you saw him from behind, it doesn't look like much until you really look at it, and it's maybe a little bit limited compared to the right side for overhead flexion.
So doing this one will probably, it may loosen it up, potentially.
Yeah, I'm gonna have that.
Jamie, do you
Yeah.
mind if I practice on?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jackson, you want to
Yeah,
practice?
yeah. I can put one.
I typically don't only do it just for
Oh,
males,
okay.
just because you can get pretty low.
Yeah, that's
and then some women are,
So you're coming in.
So this is underneath your arm.
Okay. You're
There
kind
you
of
go.
here. You just loop through like
I think you
that.
found my
Or where do
arm
you
for
put
a
it?
second, and then he took
So with your left
me
hand,
more
I
into
would kind of
horizontal
depress the
abduction.
scapula.
Again.
Okay.
And this is the middle.
Yep. So you can kind of press down the scapula. Now with your right hand, you can hold my wrist,
Okay.
and then
What do
you
you
just
feel?
position this.
Do you feel an actual like stop?
Position
Kinda right
it
Do you
there.
feel like
Okay.
you're just picking up?
Now,
like tissue
you
pushing
just want to
into
make
the
sure you're not
No, I
internally
No, no,
rotated.
okay.
Then you're just going straight down. So
You're
depressing your body.
stopping
It's
there.
almost like
I'm
going
kind of
into
pushing
a
through. It's
body
like
position.
ligamentous, capsular feel.
You can get quite a good pressure.
Do you have a staggered stance?
So am I
But you're
supposed to
mostly
have
pushing
like part of my
from your
hand
armpit.
off to feel it press in, or just all on the scapula, like pressing the scapula? Does that make sense?
Do you want to try?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you don't necessarily have to have a scalp, but if you don't, it's going to move so much.
Okay.
So you just want to try to stabilize that as much as possible.
Okay. So like that is that correct for you?
Pillows
actually
You
kind
feel
of nice
it?
for
Yeah.
That's or is
stabilizing
there
the
a way
arm
that
and
I
that.
need
I
to
feel
like
like if
correct
you just
position.
or
going down
Try
on their
moving
chest,
your
the
left
arm
hand
can just
down
move
on
wherever
the
it wants.
scapula.
okay, a little bit more? More like there or
I would
down
say,
farther?
I would
And
say
where's
come
your
right
arm
up, right where my supraspinatus fossa is,
Okay.
and push that down.
Kind of like that?
Yeah. And I actually
More,
had
put the
my,
heel of your hand
Yeah.
I had
more
your
here,
Okay,
elbow
gotcha.
and not take my
sandwiched
scapula straight,
underneath my
like down
arm.
towards
like
inferior.
between my body.
Okay.
Don't let them say whatever you want to. Okay. Like what's
Inferior that way. And then first down. Is that any better?
Yeah, there you go. I mean, you getting it for sure. And
There's
then
definitely
this is
stop.
it's kind of
But-
so find like grade 1 through 4.
So you can kind of pulse there.
And are you using your backhand just to stabilize the scap or for feeling of the
Just stabilize it.
humeral joint?
Just to stay because I'm going off of what they're telling me
Okay.
and how much I'm kind of finding my grades. I may have been too far.
Away from
So
them.
let me share that hand placement. That
Yeah. Makes it easier for me to, and you do it on me to.
you can play around with your left hand just because. I mean, body types are a little
Was it
different.
right
So
under the
slide
loom?
over to the little bit.
When I was thinking.
He's in pain.
Oh yeah. Okay.
I gotta come here.
So his,
I just kind of pull down. So I'm just trying to minimize as much movement.
Okay.
How does that feel?
I got you. Okay.
And I'm putting quite a bit of pressure. I'm just trying to find grade 4.
okay, you're doing
Okay.
great.
And the only, you gotta make sure that
Oh, that's,
you can start to hurt
That
yourself.
feels
You don't
Yeah.
have good
I think
cushion.
I was like too far back. If I'm like here on top of that, you can.
yeah. Yeah, that's so much better.
And then taking it across the
Gotcha. Okay.
But that, I mean, this is the technique there is
feel more
someone that has
intense.
low irritability. I mean, this is a good
Really?
one.
Yeah.
I like that.
To me,
I don't know
anyway,
if any of my
I don't know if
patients
it's-
right now could benefit from it.
Maybe
but-
I think I'm somewhat of a tight posterior.
Naomi, stay right there for a second. Let me show you. So if you were doing, let's say for instance, you guys wanted to do, just stretch out the posterior capsule. I mean, 'cause this is a good HEP, but
Yeah.
if you wanted to just stretch, could you slide over just a little bit
Sure.
towards me?
Okay.
Appreciate it. And I would just get the scalp. To stabilize it pretty good. Alright, let me bring your pressure on. And just doing the same thing. So now you just manually give it down. Good stretch. Now you probably, do you feel much stretch?
I do, it feels good.
And then you can do even a muscle energy, so push back to my hand lightly.
With my.
Yeah, just kind of
yeah.
push your elbow straight to my hand. Well, you keep your arm, elbow bent, and then your
There
elbow.
we go.
And then relax. Then kind of take a little further. And just kind of getting a good stretch. But that, I mean, those two, sometimes you can spend maybe 20 minutes just working on posterior capsule and posterior muscle. Muscle.
Okay.
So that's good. I mean,